Pam Bondi stormed off live television right after Stephen Colbert made a shocking accusation, but what exactly did he say, and why did Pam refuse to sit there and take it? Pam Bondi was no stranger to tough interviews as Florida's former Attorney General. She had battled against aggressive reporters, partisan attacks, and heated debates. But tonight was different. Something felt off the audience at The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Buzzed with excitement as the lights dimmed and the cameras panned. Across the stage, the energy in the room was electric. Pam adjusted her blazer as the host smirked across from her. Colbert leaning forward with his signature condescending grin, wasted. "No time, Pam, let's talk about corruption." Pam raised an eyebrow. "That's a broad topic." Colbert chuckled, shaking his head. Theatrically, "Oh, don't play coy with me. You've spent years defending some of the most powerful political figures in the country. Don't you think the American people deserve better?" Pam remained composed, folding her hands together. "Stephen, I've always worked to uphold the law. Whether people agree with my positions or not, my record speaks for itself." Colbert scoffed. "Does it? Because many people, and by many people, I mean pretty much everyone, with a conscience, believe you've spent your career protecting the guilty rather than defending the law." A murmur rippled through the audience. Pam's jaw clenched slightly, but she didn't break eye contact. "That's a loaded statement, Stephen. If you have evidence of wrongdoing, why don't you present it?" Instead of relying on dramatic accusations, Colbert's smirk widened. "Oh, I thought you'd never ask." The studio screens suddenly lit up behind him. Headlines filled the screen, articles questioning Pam's integrity, claims that she had shielded corrupt officials, a barrage of negative press curated to destroy her credibility. The audience gasped. Some chuckled, others whispered. Pam kept her expression unreadable, but inside her blood boiled. Stephen leaned back, feigning innocence. "Look at that, just a coincidence, I'm sure." Pam exhaled sharply. "Stephen, you're not interested in a real discussion, are you? You're playing a scripted narrative." Colbert laughed. So now I'm the bad guy, Pam. You're the one on trial here, metaphorically speaking, of course." Pam sat up straighter. "No, Stephen, I think you are." The audience fell silent. Stephen Carr's smug expression faltered just slightly. Pam continued, her voice calm but firm. "This isn't an interview. It's an ambush, and I won't be part of it." She pushed back her chair abruptly and stood up. The crowd gasped. Stephen raised his hands in mock surrender. "Whoa, where are you going? We're just getting started." Pam turned sharply toward him. Her next words would shake the studio to its core. The room fell into stunned silence. Pam Bondi stood unwavering as Stephen Carr's smug grin faltered for the first time. That night the cameras were still rolling, capturing every second of this unprecedented moment. The Late Show's audience, conditioned to cheer for Colbert's takedowns, sat frozen. The tension was palpable, as if the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. Pam locked eyes with the host. "Stephen, you didn't invite me here for an interview. You invited me for a trial by media, and I don't answer to you." Colbert let out a forced chuckle, attempting to regain control. "Come on, Pam, don't be so dramatic. This is just a little spirited conversation." Pam scoffed. "This isn't a conversation, Stephen, it's a setup. And you know it." The audience murmured again. Colbert, sensing he was losing control, quickly turned to his usual playbook mockery. "Oh, so now you're a victim?" he asked, voice dripping with sarcasm. "I thought tough politicians like you could handle a little heat." Pam crossed her arms. "Heat is one thing, a blatant smear campaign is another." She turned toward the camera, addressing the millions of viewers watching at home. "America, this is what they do. They don't debate you, they don't challenge your ideas, they destroy your character." The crowd gasped. Colbert's eyes flickered with unease. Pam continued, her voice steady. "This isn't just about me, it's about anyone who challenges their agenda. If they can do this to me, imagine what they can do to you." A hush fell over the audience. This wasn't how these segments were supposed to go. The guest wasn't supposed to fight back. Colbert shifted uncomfortably, then forced a laugh. "All right, folks, I think Pam needs a little break. Maybe some water." Pam raised an eyebrow. "Is that your way of telling me to sit down and take it?" Sieber smirked, regaining some confidence. "I just don't want you to leave before I get to my favorite part." He gestured to the studio screen behind him, which suddenly flashed a headline that changed everything. Pam's eyes narrowed. The words on the screen sent a chill through the audience. "Breaking secret files revealed. FBI investigating Pam Bondi." The crowd collectively gasped. Pam turned slowly back to Colbert, her expression unreadable. The host leaned forward, relishing the moment, care to explain that one. Pam stared him down, heart pounding. She had two choices: fight back, immediately walk out, and let the world wonder. She made her decision. Pam Bondi took one step back from her chair, then another, and then, without breaking eye contact, she turned and walked off the stage. The audience erupted in chaos. Colbert's grin disappeared. "Whoa, wait, Pam, don't you want to clear this up?" Pam didn't stop, didn't look back. She knew the truth, and she knew exactly who had leaked that story, because this wasn't just a hit piece. This was a warning, and the real fight, it was just getting started. Pam Bondi strode through the backstage corridors of the Late Show studio, her heels clicking against the polished floor. The noise from the live audience still echoed in the background, but she had bigger problems. Now Melissa, her longtime aide, rushed to meet her, eyes wide with concern. Pam, what just happened in there? Pam didn't stop walking. They set me up, she said sharply, and they just made their biggest mistake. Melissa struggled to keep up. The FBI thing, was that real? Are they actually investigating you? Pam's expression hardened. No, that was a manufactured leak. Melissa's face paled. Then who did it? Pam slowed, glancing around cautiously before lowering her voice. Stephen Colbert doesn't have that kind of power. He's just the mouthpiece. Melissa swallowed hard. Then who's pulling the strings? Pam exhaled sharply. That's what we're about to find out. Just then, Pam's phone buzzed. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Pam Bondi. A distorted voice came through the line. You should have stayed in your seat. Pam froze. The voice was low, calculated, not Colbert. Someone else was watching. You think this is about a talk show? The voice continued. You have no idea what you just walked into. Melissa's eyes widened as she saw the color drain from Pam's face. Who is it? She whispered. Pam didn't respond. Her grip tightened around the phone. What do you want? She demanded. The voice chuckled darkly. It's not what I want, Miss Bondi. It's about what happens next. A pause, then the final word sent a chill through her spine. Watch your back. The line went dead. Pam slowly lowered the phone. Melissa grabbed her arm. Pam, who was that? Pam looked down at the screen, her heart pounding. Whoever it was, they weren't bluffing. They just declared war, and she was ready to fight back. Pam Bondi stood in the dimly lit hallway of the Late Show studio. Gripping her phone tightly, the words from the unknown caller echoed. In her mind, watch your back, Melissa. Her aide was still staring at her, waiting for an answer. Pam, Melissa said, her voice urgent. Who was that? Pam took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. Someone who doesn't want me talking. Melissa swallowed hard. This is bad. Whoever leaked that FBI story, it was meant to send a message. Pam finished, her voice cold. They wanted me to sit there and take the hit. When I didn't, they escalated. Melissa glanced nervously around them. Pam, we need to get out of here now. Pam nodded, adjusting her blazer and heading for the exit. But just as they reached the door, a group of reporters came rushing toward them. Miss Bondi, any comment on the FBI investigation? Are the allegations true? Why did you storm off the show? Pam's jaw tightened. They were waiting for her, just like they planned. Melissa stepped in front of her. No comment. Pam, however, had other plans. She turned to face the cameras, her expression sharp and controlled. The American people should ask themselves something, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Why did this breaking news magically appear the second I pushed back on live television? A murmur rippled through the press. Some hesitated, others glanced at their phones, checking for updates. Pam continued, her gaze unwavering. I'll tell you why. Because I refused to be part of a scripted hit job, and when that didn't work, she held up her phone. I got a warning. The reporters leaned in. A warning from who? Pam smirked slightly, but there was no humor in her eyes. That's the real question, isn't it? Before the reporters could press further, she turned and walked straight into the black SUV, waiting at the curb. Melissa slid in beside her, slamming the door shut. Pam, that was risky. You just made yourself an even bigger target. Pam exhaled, staring out the tinted window as the driver pulled away. Good. Melissa frowned. Good. Pam's voice was steady. Whoever's behind this just made their first move. Now it's my turn. Melissa hesitated. Pam, we don't even know who they are yet. Pam's phone buzzed again, another unknown number. This time she answered immediately. A deep voice spoke, calmer than the first. You should have just played along. Miss Bondi, Pam's grip tightened. She knew that voice, and now she knew exactly who was behind this. Pam Bondi sat stiffly in the back seat of the black SUV, the hum of the engine barely registering in her ears. Her mind was racing. The voice on the other end of the line was calm, deliberate, and unmistakable. It was Alan Mitchell, media mogul billionaire, and the real puppet master behind the hit job on her reputation. Pam tightened her grip on the phone. I was wondering when you'd show up. A slight chuckle came through the speaker. Pam, you always work quick. Pam's expression darkened. Is that why you planted the fake FBI story, to keep me in check? Alan sighed as if he were speaking to a misbehaving child. Planted? No. Let's call it a strategic release. Pam's jaw clenched. You're used to controlling people. Aren't you controlling the narrative? Making sure no one questions you? Alan's voice lost its amusement. And yet, here you are questioning me. Pam refused to back down. I know you funded the operation that put those surveillance files in Kohler's studio. I know you're behind all of it. A pause, then Alan let out a slow, calculated breath. Do you have any idea who you're messing with? Pam's heartbeat quickened, but her voice remained steady. I know exactly who you are, and I know you just made the biggest mistake of your life. Alan chuckled again, but this time there was an edge to it. You always were a fighter, he mused, but let me give you a friendly warning. Walk away while you still can. Pam smirked. You think I'm scared of you? Alan's tone grew colder. You should be. Pam leaned forward slightly, gripping the phone tighter. Is that a threat? Alan silenced, then, in a voice that sent a chill down her spine, he answered, it's a guarantee. The line went dead. Pam lowered the phone slowly, staring at the blank screen. Melissa, who had been listening intently, whispered, Pam, what did he mean? Pam exhaled sharply, tucking the phone away. It means we just made him nervous. Melissa blinked. Isn't that bad? Pam's lips curled into a knowing smirk. No, it's exactly what we needed. Alan Mitchell had just revealed his hand, and Pam Bondi was about to play her next move. Pam Bondi sat in silence, staring out the window of the SUV, as the Washington skyline blurred. Past the conversation with Alan Mitchell played over and over in her mind. You should be scared, it's a guarantee. Melissa shifted uncomfortably beside her. Pam, what if he's serious? Pam turned to her, voice steady. Oh, he's serious, and that's exactly why we have to move fast. Melissa's brow furrowed. Move fast. What does that mean? Pam pulled out her phone and dialed a secure line. It rang twice before a familiar voice picked up. Bondi. Pam's shoulders relaxed slightly. Thompson, we have a problem. Special Agent Daniel Thompson of the FBI had been her quiet ally for years, one of the few people in Washington she still trusted. Let me guess. Thompson sighed. Mitchell. Pam nodded. He called me directly. Thompson paused. Processing. That's bold too. Bold. Hunes, getting desperate. Pam said he's trying to scare me into backing down. Thompson's voice darkened. Pam, I don't like this. Mitchell doesn't make threats, he makes people disappear. Melissa's eyes widened, but Pam remained unfazed. Then we exposed him first. Thompson sighed. Easier said than done. Pam leaned forward. We need something concrete, something undeniable. Have you found anything on Mitchell that ties him directly to Colbert's operation? Thompson hesitated. We're close, but we need more. Pam exhaled sharply, then let him get it. Thompson's tone turned cautious. Pam, I just intercepted intel that Mitchell is hosting a private meeting tonight at his estate. High-level media figures, political operatives. If there's ever been a place to get the truth, that's it. Pam's eyes sharpened. Then I need to be there. Melissa whipped her head toward Pam. What? No, that's insane. Thompson didn't respond right away. Then slowly he said, Pam, do you understand what you're saying? Pam's voice was clear and steady. Yes, I go in, I get the proof we need, and I walk out before Mitchell even knows what hit him. Thompson exhaled. This isn't a TV debate, Pam. This is a criminal operation. I know, Pam said, determination burning in her eyes, and that's exactly why I have to go. Melissa grabbed her arm. Pam, this is suicide. Mitchell just threatened you. If you walk into his house, you might not walk out. Pam turned to her. Melissa, if we don't stop him now, he's going to keep doing this to me, to others, to anyone who speaks out. Melissa swallowed hard. How do we even get in? Thompson answered. I have a contact inside. She can get you in as staff, but it's risky. Pam smirked slightly. Risk is my specialty. Thompson sighed. I had a feeling you'd say that. All right, Bondi, if you're going in, we're going to do this, right? Pam straightened her shoulders. She wasn't afraid because she knew one thing for certain. Alan Mitchell thought he was trapping her, but by the time the night was over, she would trap him. Pam Bondi smoothed down the crisp white sleeve of her server's uniform as she stepped through the grand entrance of Alan Mitchell's estate. The chandelier above glowed with an almost menacing brilliance, casting long shadows over the gathering of politicians, media mogul, and power players. She adjusted the discreet earpiece connected to Agent Thompson, his voice low in her ear. You're inside, keep your head down, and stick to the plan. Pam exhaled, slowly scanning the lavish ballroom. The guests moved in the circles of whispered conversations. Champagne glasses clinking softly. They were the real decision-makers, the ones who controlled the headlines, the policies, and sometimes the scandals. And at the center of it all stood Pellinit, Alan Mitchell. Pam's fingers curled into a fist at her side as she watched him, calm, collected, untouchable. Melissa's worried voice crackled through her earpiece. Pam, I still think this is crazy. Pam smirked slightly as she grabbed a silver tray of drinks. Crazy is thinking we can let men like him keep running the show. She moved carefully through the crowd, keeping her head low. The FBI needed her to get close enough to hear and record the conversations. She didn't have to wait long. A small group of men had gathered near Mitchell, speaking in hushed tones. Pam subtly angled herself, pretending to refill a guest's drink. Bondi was a mistake. Pam froze. Another voice, deeper, colder, responded. She should have gone down with Colbert. We underestimated her. Mitchell sighed, swirling his whiskey glass lazily. She won't be a problem much longer. Pam's heart pounded. Thompson's voice was urgent in her ear. We need that proof. Pam, get closer. She inhaled deeply, steadying herself, and took another step forward. But then Mitchell's gaze snapped up and landed directly on her. Pam felt a chill crawl up her spine. Had he recognized her? Mitchell's eyes narrowed slightly, his smirk slow and knowing. He knows. Pam pivoted fast, turning back toward the server's entrance, her pulse quickening. Thompson's voice was sharp. Pam, aboard. Now he's on to you. Mitchell raised his hand slightly, a subtle signal to his security. Pam didn't wait. She ditched the tray, pushing through the crowd as discreetly as possible, heading straight for the back exit. Behind her, she heard the quick shuffle of footsteps. His men were following. Pam's heart pounded. If they caught her before she reached the extraction point, she was done. Melissa's panicked voice came through the earpiece. Pam, they're coming after you. Get out of there. Pam burst through the kitchen doors, shoving past startled staff, her eyes locking onto the side exit, but before she could reach it, a strong hand grabbed her wrist. Pam whipped around and came face to face with Alan Mitchell himself. He smiled. Cold, calculated, dangerous. Leaving so soon, Miss Bondi? He asked smoothly. Pam held her ground. You're making a mistake. Alan, his smile widened. No, Pam, you did. Pam Bondi locked eyes with Alan Mitchell, her pulse thundering in her ears. His grip on her wrist was firm, but controlled like a predator, toying with its prey. You're bold, I'll give you that, Mitchell said smoothly, his voice almost amused, but boldness only gets you so far. Pam didn't flinch. And what exactly is your plan? Alan, have your goons dragged me out the back door? Mitchell chuckled, shaking his head. Oh no, that would be too easy. You see, Pam, I don't need to silence you. He leaned in slightly, voice lowering. I already did. Pam's stomach twisted. Mitchell gestured subtly to one of his security men who handed him a phone. He turned the screen toward Pam. A breaking news alert flashed across the screen. Pam Bondi, under federal investigation for wiretapping Alan Mitchell's private event. Pam's breath hitched. Mitchell's smirk grew. You walked right into it, Pam. The moment you stepped onto my property, I had you. Pam clenched her jaw, her mind racing. He planted the story before she even got here. Melissa's panicked voice crackled in her earpiece. Pam, the press is running with it. They're calling you a criminal. Pam inhaled sharply, forcing herself to stay calm. Mitchell tilted his head slightly. What's wrong? You're usually so quick with a response. Pam's mind snapped into focus. She knew men like Alan Mitchell. He wanted her to panic. He wanted her to believe she had lost. She wasn't about to give him that satisfaction. Pam straightened her shoulders and smirked right back at him. Alan, she said coolly, do you really think I didn't come prepared? Mitchell's eyes flickered. For just a second, enough for her to know she had struck a nerve. Pam lifted her chin. You've spent your whole career controlling the narrative, but there's just one little problem. She leaned in slightly. I'm better at it than you are. Mitchell's smirk vanished. Pam pulled out her own phone, tapped a button, and turned the screen toward him. A live feed was playing. It was his agent. His own voice caught on a private microphone, admitting to setting her up. Pam watched as a Mitchell's face paled smile. Alan, she whispered, you're on air. Melissa's voice erupted in her earpiece. Pam, it's working. The feed is trending everywhere. People are turning on him. Mitchell's hands clenched into fists. You. Pam didn't wait. She spun on her heel and walked away. Her heart hammering behind her, she heard Alan Mitchell shouting orders, his carefully crafted empire crumbling in real time. Pam Bondi had just played her best move, and she had won. Pam Bondi strode through the grand hallway of Alan Mitchell's estate, her heels clicking against the marble floors. The tension in the air was thick, but she didn't look back, not at Mitchell, not at his crumbling empire. She had delivered the fatal blow, and now the world was watching. Melissa's voice came through the earpiece, breathless with excitement. Pam, it's happening. The media is flipping. People are demanding answers from Mitchell. His own allies are turning on him. Pam's lips curled into a smirk. Good. She reached the exit, pushing the heavy doors open, and stepping into the cool night air. The scene outside was pure chaos, reporters flashing cameras, security scrambling. She had exposed Alan Mitchell in real time, and the world was eating up. A swarm of journalists rushed toward her, shoving microphones forward. Miss Bondi, did Alan Mitchell try to set you up? Is it true he's been running an illegal surveillance operation? Pam stopped, turning toward the cameras. She didn't need to say much. Mitchell had already destroyed himself. All I'll say is this, Pam stated firmly, when powerful people think they're untouchable, they get sloppy, and tonight, the world saw the truth. The report exploded with more questions, but Pam was already walking toward the waiting SUV. Melissa was inside, grinning ear to ear, as Pam slid into the seat. You did it, Melissa said, shaking her head in disbelief. You actually did it? Pam exhaled sharply, leaning her head back for the first time all night. Yeah, then after a beat, she smirked, and I'm just getting started. Alan Mitchell stood frozen, his fists clenched at his sides. His empire was burning in real time, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. One of his security men hesitantly stepped forward. Sir, the FBI just arrived. They have a warrant. Mitchell's jaw locked. He had lost, but as the FBI agent stormed in, Mitchell's rage turned cold. Pam Bondi had won this round, but the game wasn't over yet. Pam Bondi sat in the dimly lit conference room of an undisclosed FBI safe house, her fingers wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee. The adrenaline from the night's events was finally wearing off, leaving behind the weight of what had just happened. Melissa sat across from her, eyes flicking between her phone screen and Pam. It's everywhere, the footage, the audio. Mitchell's completely exposed. Pam nodded, exhaustion creeping into her voice. And what about him? Melissa swallowed. The FBI took him in an hour ago, but he's already made a call. Pam's stomach tightened. To who? Before Melissa could answer, Agent Thompson strolled into the room, his face serious. You were right, he said grimly. Mitchell had backup plans. Pam's fingers curled around her cup. How bad? Thompson pulled out his phone. Tapping the screen, a breaking news alert appeared. Alan Mitchell claims political persecution files lawsuit against Pam Bondi and the FBI. Pam exhaled sharply. Melissa's eyes widened. You've got to be kidding me. He's playing the victim. Thompson nodded. Hunes using his media influence to spin this, claiming the government and political operatives he gestured toward Pam are conspiring against him. Pam leaned back in her chair, staring at the screen. So what, he thinks he can win in the court of public opinion. Thompson's expression hardened. Pam, this isn't just about optics anymore, has real connections, people in places that matter. If he walks away from this, he won't just come for you next time. Pam finished his sentence for him. He'll destroy everything. A tense silence filled the room. Then Pam sat up straight. So we finish it. Melissa blinked. What do you mean, Pam? Voice was steady, determined. We don't just expose Mitchell, we expose everyone connected to him. Thompson hesitated. That's a big move, Pam. You're talking about taking on an entire network. Pam nodded, which is exactly why we do it now, while the world is watching. Melissa glanced between them. How Pam pulled out her phone, tapping into the live feed of a major news network. The anchor was already discussing the scandal. The world was glued to their screens. Pam lifted her chin. We tell the truth, she said simply, loud enough that no one can cover it up. Alan Mitchell sat in a holding room, his expensive suit slightly wrinkled, but his composure completely intact. A lawyer sat across from him, flipping through documents. We'll file for an emergency motion first thing in the morning. Mitchell barely acknowledged him. His focus was elsewhere because Alan Mitchell knew one thing for sure. Pam Bondi had won the battle, but he was still determined to win the war. He leaned back in his chair, a small smirk playing at his lips. Let's see how far she's willing to go. Pam Bondi sat in front of a national news camera, the world watching. She took a deep breath, then she told everything: names, deals, corrupt connections, everything Alan Mitchell had spent decades building burned in minutes. The headlines the next day: the Mitchell empire collapses, mass investigations underway. Pam Bondi had done what no one else had ever dared to do. She had beaten the system, and this time there was no coming back. 3 weeks later, Alan Mitchell's empire was in ruins. He was indicted on multiple charges. His network dissolved, his allies abandoned him, and Pam Bondi, she was still standing as she walked through the doors of a new law office. Her phone buzzed, a message from Agent Thompson. It's over, you won. Pam smirked. No, she hadn't just won. She had changed the game forever.